me. I had a high expectation, not high expectation, but I was excited when they drafted him a year ago. I thought he was a good player at Michigan, captain for multiple years there. I was hoping he kind of developed, but he has been. Doesn't seem like he's done that to this point. Let's get on. Move on, Johnny Mac. Great opening segment here. Preseason game tonight. Everybody, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time at MetLife Stadium. Eagles versus Jets to close out this edition of the preseason, and then start preparing for Eagles Cowboys week 1. Let's go to our main man, Rick Serritella, set to join us right here on Birds 365. He joins us now. Rick, what's going on, man? Good
What's
Friday.
happening, fellas?
Haven't talked to you in a little bit, Rick. How you been, brother?
Yeah, we got a little turnpike football action. Jets.
Yeah, turnpike. Woo! A tradition unlike any other for many years. The last preseason game was Eagles Jets, and it's like the Masters, I think, that tradition, and then Eagles Jets preseason football. But good to see you, buddy. Saw you down at the NovaCare complex, but you heard me talking about the offensive line, so I guess we'll start there. They have so many young players they want to keep working with, but how do you keep them all, Rick Serritella?
Well, Howie's always got one eye on the future, and that was one of the most enlightening conversations that we had down there at the NovaCare complex, is how excited they are to and to use their terminology, enroll these rookies into Stoutland University, right? And I think they'll get creative with the 53-man roster because they like a lot of these guys, and I'm talking about Cam Williams, Miles Hinton, Holland Pierce, the big Mammoth Rutgers guy, developmental prospect. But I think Drew Kendall is a guy.
He's ready to go right away. Drew's the guy who's ready to play.
He's the one who's looked the best, or at least it feels like it from afar.
And I was fascinated by the pre-draft process because I know he didn't hit the size requirements, but when I was down at the East-West Shrine Bowl, he was clearly by far the most polished offensive lineman. Some of us remember his father, Pete Kendall, who was a great lineman in his own right. And so he didn't have a lot of experience at Boston College. I saw a lot of cross-training. And at some point, Drew Kendall's going to have a factor on this team. I think, with the added versatility, right? Him and Cam Jurgens, there's a lot of interchangeable parts along this offensive line. At some point, they're going to need that. I would say, Cam Williams, I was not a huge fan of his college film. I think he's still raw, but the size, the attributes, you get guys like that and Pierce, you redshirt them, you develop them. That's the goal there. And Hinton, he's been a little bit up and down from my understanding, but, again, a guy that I thought his draft stock fell a little bit because of his situation where he nearly quit the game altogether. Yeah. And so I thought he got downgraded in the draft process, but I think he's a guy, all these guys at the offensive line might not have an immediate impact, but they always have one eye on the future, and you got to appreciate that.
You talk
what's
about
realistic? Go ahead, John.
Real quick, you talk about Pete Kendall, Miles' dad. He might have been the best offensive lineman in football for 2-3 years. Yeah. So the bloodline aspect of it there. But sorry, go ahead, Zander.
No, you're good. We had Chris Hinton on the channel right after Miles was drafted. Pretty good interview. Go check that out, everybody, if you missed it. Rick, what's a realistic timeline for a fan to expect on these guys, these young players? You just talked about Cam Williams, a super raw player. You only have a 4-year rookie deal. What's the right expectation on when to expect a player, or no, hey, he can play in this league, or probably a miss with that dart? What's a realistic timeline?
I think at this stage, right, they're all talented enough. They all have some kind of traits that the Eagles identified and want to work with. And I think that's where the mental acumen comes in, right? Drew Kendall is extremely smart, fast learner, and you've seen that. He's picked it up quick, and I think each guy is on a case-by-case basis. Now, Williams is a guy who's got extensive experience at Texas, big games, P4 pedigree, same deal with Hinton, so you got to like that. And the Rutgers guys, they don't get a lot of players drafted, but they always come into the league well coached, especially the offensive linemen. I mean, they've been doing that for years. So, I think it's just a case-by-case scenario, and really that's as I do more and more of the evaluation process, it's really about the DNA, the mental makeup, what's between the ears. And, as long as they can sustain that, then we'll see how they develop physically.
Rick, I want to take you to the wide receiver position because the guy who's captured the every year there's one of those guys in every training camp that unheralded, undrafted, I call him Mr. Novacare now. And this year's winner of that mythical title was Darius Cooper.
Yeah.
Great receiver at Tarleton State at a lower level. Tremendous production. He has shown up. But from what I hear, there's some, sort of, they didn't huddle at Tarleton State, I was told. There's alignment issues, fundamental issues, technique. They want to keep working with him. What have you heard about Darius Cooper? Because he's making a run at the 53.
Yeah. So, I mean, we just talked about it, right? And there's a little bit of a learning curve there, right? And as soon as it starts to click for him, this guy is really going to get it. And I think we've seen that as training camp wears on, but I think that was the concern. He's real twitchy. He returns kicks, a little bit of a body catcher. I think he's got to work on using his hands a little bit more naturally, but this guy is on the back burner, right? I mean, they're loaded in the slot, and it's like break glass in case of an emergency, but I don't think he's going anywhere.
Yeah. But the question is, here's the deep question for Howie, because this is what I've learned over the years about Howie. It's not necessarily what you do, it's what he thinks is going to happen. If somebody's going to claim Darius Cooper on waivers, he's going to keep him. If he thinks he can get him through, then he'll play, the practice squad game and keep working with him as a developmental player. Do you think he's shown enough to get through waivers?
I think a lot of that comes with recruiting, and you have a conversation with them and say, listen, you've been here the last couple of years, you know the playbook, and unless you have a 53-man roster opportunity somewhere else around the league, your best spot, your quickest way to the field is going to be here in Philadelphia on our practice squad. We already know you. We love you. We want to work with you. Injuries are going to happen, and you're the next man up. So I think there's a little bit of a recruiting sales pitch there if it comes down to a numbers crunch. But that might be a conversation to be had with the agent before they make a decision.
How much, I'll ask both of you guys this, how much of a premium is on the Eagles roster in terms of a guy goes to the waivers and he's from the Eagles, the other team, to the Jets of the world, to the Jaguars of the world, to the teams who are at the bottom of the league look and say, look at that roster, look at their 2 Super Bowl wins in the last 8 years, look at their success in the last 4 years. Let's go pluck a guy from there. How much do you think a premium exists on that Eagles roster and an Eagles player as compared to, maybe another team?
I will say this. I've been to quite a few NFL training camps this August, and by far Philadelphia had the deepest roster. I mean, they're 2 and 3 deep is extremely competitive. I don't see any other training. Pittsburgh, believe it or not, they've got some talent on that team. The Steelers, Pennsylvania, the Steelers now, if you go on their roster, they've got a lot of future Hall of Famers. They might not be in the prime of their career, but like the Steelers and the Eagles are loaded. And I think teams are paying attention because I'm having those conversations when I'm down there on the sideline with the fellow scouts. And I was there at the joint practice scrimmage, and the Brown scouts are asking me about the Eagles players, and the Eagles scouts are asking me about the Browns players. And so there's a lot of that going on. And I think, especially in this division, it's so competitive. They play each other. They're watching the games. A guy like Darius Cooper is definitely going to pop up and catch the attention. And I think there's teams that are going to be waiting to pounce to see. There's going to be some players that the Eagles have to part ways with, and other teams are going to claim them. I would say there's probably, if I had to guess, there's probably going to be more waiver claims on Eagles cuts than any other organization in the NFL. That's my prediction.
Yeah, there's definitely some cachet to being the Super Bowl champions, and the Eagles are considered, if not the deepest team, probably right there. Rick mentioned Detroit. I still think Pittsburgh. I still think Detroit is very deep as well. Cornerback is an interesting one for this game, and I'll tell you why. The Eagles have a bunch of, I think, good corners, good backup corners, but they don't have a number 2 corner. I don't think at this stage. So, maybe Ja'Cory Bennett can turn into that. But I look at the Jets and I say, the Jets aren't one of those teams in the conversation for, and I don't know if you scouted them this summer.
Mm-hmm.
But they look like a team that's got some corner depth. They're it's not a great team, but it starts with Sauce Gardner, obviously, but Michael Carter's a good player. Brandon Stevens a good player. What do you think of their depth? Did you scout them? And if you did, what do you think about their depth at cornerback?
Yeah, I did get into the Jets camp. I didn't pop up my notes here, but offhand, I mean, like Sauce Gardner is as good as it gets. He had a little bit of a down season that year, right? But I think both teams really could use some depth, and I would put the Jets in that category because again, like once you get to the backup on the Jets, it gets thin quick. And I know we talked at Eagles training camp, and you were concerned about the pass rush. I'm concerned about the cornerback depth because Mitchell is the clear one, but DeJean and Jackson, I think, are interchangeable parts. Like you can flip those guys on the inside, outside. So I think they have 3 competent cover men. But I'll tell you what, they're one injury away from being in a panic mode because, I mean, if you got to rely on Eli Ricks, Kaylee Ringo, I mean, Jacorian Bennett just got here. McWilliams is promising, but, I mean, you can't feel real good about starting any of those guys. And I think that's where probably the concern is. They transitioned very quickly here, like James Bradbury and Darius Slay over to Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. They brought in Dory Jackson. Like that's a lot of turnover in the secondary, and they're going to have to find a way there.
John called Darius Cooper Mr. Novacare, and I would say the antithesis of that this year, the inverse of that this year was Keely Ringo. He came into camp. He was the #1 guy everybody was watching coming into camp. We're all excited. Oh, Keely Ringo, year 3. We get to the end of camp, the guy's not even getting first-team reps anymore, Rick. How do you gauge a player like that? I don't know if you remember scouting him. I know you scout everybody over at allaccessfootball.com, and you guys do a great job at the NFL Draft Bible, but he's been a letdown for me, man. He's been a letdown for me for sure. And, what do you do with a player like that? What do you make of that situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think we slapped a mid-round grade on him. He's got size. He's got a lot of experience, but you just kind of want to see him take the next level. And when does that come? And we talked about the mental acumen. I don't know if that's holding him back, but I was disappointed when I was down there in Eagles camp. Like, I didn't really see a whole heck of a lot from these backups, including him. And at some point, a decision has got to be made. Now, I think he's done enough or has enough leeway to have a leash here, but I think his depth chart status might be on the way down. Like Bennett, McWilliams, have they moved ahead of him? I think that'll be interesting to see.
I think Bennett has.
Yeah. Well, second team reps over the last few days of camps were Jacorian Bennett and Mac McWilliams on the outside. Kaylee Ringo and Eli Ricks came in from there after those guys, which I think surprises a lot of people. And now Keely's hurt with a quad injury. So things have not gone the way as expected for Kaylee Ringo in the summer. Now, I want to tap into you, Rick, about Drew Makuba because, hey, he's a rookie. So you're fresh off scouting him from that perspective for All Access Football. So he's shown his ability as a playmaker, but one of the knocks on him was the size. Can he hold up as a safety long term? He's already been hurt twice. He banged up his shoulder. He missed 5-6 days. Now he's out with a hamstring. How do you kind of gauge that? It seems to me Sidney Brown's going to be the week 1 starter, not necessarily because he slam dunk earned it, but because Drew Makuba can't stay on the field.
Yeah, and listen, I think Brown has got experience. He's flashed, a little bit more what you're getting there. When you have a rookie who's been banged up, it's a little bit more of a question mark. And so, 100, I have him listed as 186 pounds. I mean,
he looks smaller than that, Rick, in live.
And I mean, that's like Blankenship's 203, Brown is 211, and Makumba 186. Like that's a 25-pound difference from the starters. So like he needs to get with the nutritionist in there. And that's the issue. Like when you have a high-flying playmaking safety who likes to hit, you gotta kind of worry about that. We saw that with Gardner Johnson, right? Like he always had an injury flare up. And I thought like when they drafted Drew, I thought they saw some similar characteristics in terms of playmaking ability, bait the quarterback, jump the routes, interceptions, turnovers. I think that's what he brings to the table. But this is a veteran team. There's high expectations. You can't just hand the keys over to a first-year player, especially a rookie that's missed some time.
Rick, I want to go to the starters with you. I know we talked about some of these depth guys, and that's what the focus will be tonight in the preseason game. But coming off a Super Bowl year for the Eagles in which they really dominated. I mean, after the bye week, Rick, they were 16-1. I mean, they were belt to ass all year for, is what the people are saying. What do you expect from them coming into this year? How do you expect their offense changes? I think, the defense obviously was a big part of the way they won last year and kind of lost a lot of those guys. So I think it's going to look a little different this year, almost putting a lot on Vic Fangio's plate. What's kind of your expectation, your broad expectation for what the Eagles can be this year?
Well, I told Mac down in training, this is another 13-win team all day long. Like, I can't see this squad being beaten. They'll probably beat themselves. I mean, I just can't see them losing more than 3 games. Now, like, when I look in the division, I feel like Washington got stronger coming off a big year. I feel like the Giants are going to be much improved. And like you look at the changing of the guard, like last year it was the Eagles with the best defensive line in the division. Now you can state a case like the Giants, they've got some real ammunition.
That's definitely the best D line in the division.
Oh, yeah. That defensive front is impressive on paper.
Oh, man. And Abdul Carter is legit. Like, I saw him in training camp, and that dude is going to create problems. You match him up opposite of Brian Burns. You got Dexter Lawrence in the middle, and then Thibodeau looks like he's got a little fire underneath him. So, I think there are some legitimate questions in terms of the stability of offensive line compared to years past. And if the Giants can keep the games low scoring, I think they might give the Eagles a fit in one of these games. And
I said the same thing yesterday, Rick. I said that front is gonna make people pissed off for at least one of the 2 games.
Yes,
they're gonna get all over you. That on paper. I'm with you. Finally, it's funny because I think when you have these teams that are bad for an extended period of time. The same thing happened with the Lions. You wake up one day and they've been picking in the top 5 of the draft so many years in a row, and you go, damn, they got some good players.
Right.
Man, that's what's kind of happening with the Giants. They're getting that defensive front. Boy, if
you gotta look long and hard to find maybe a better defensive line in all of football, really.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, those 3 edge rushers are nasty, man.
The vibe is incredibly different down there in Giants camp. Like, there is an energy, there's an excitement. I feel a rejuvenation.
Where is that coming from? Jackson Dart?
Jackson Dart, I think, has got more swag than any rookie quarterback, including Shedeur
I like
Sanders,
him. I'm not a Jackson Dart hater.
And
I
Carter, like when he doesn't take a lot of reps, but when he comes on the field, the fans, the electricity goes through the roof. And then you got guys like Cameron Scadaboo is a spark plug. Some Marcus Mabo, this guy's gonna win.
Marcus Mbo, yeah, the Eagles had a lot of interest in him in the
this
draft.
guy, he gets under your skin. I watched him at the Senior Bowl. He must have pissed off at least half a dozen defensive linemen who started a scuffle with him after the whistle, just because he plays through the whistle, and that's the new attitude. And I also thought, like, the first year when the Giants had a little bit of success, you saw a fire and a confidence out of Brian Daboll, and I think it got some humble pie the last couple seasons. I saw a rejuvenated Brian Daboll. I think he's got his guy. I think he's excited about Jackson Dart. I think they're underplaying how soon this kid's going to play. I think he'll be in there week 5 against the Saints, especially if they stumble out of the gates like 1-3 start.
All right. Jackson Dart is interesting to me because people are so hyped and he's played well in the preseason. From a scouting perspective, because I've been on this, I mean, 13 reps in the NFL are a disaster so many times in so many camps. And I've been around camps for years, and I hesitate to evaluate quarterbacks, especially. Now he's gotten higher reps than that, obviously. And we'll see how long they last with Russell Wilson, but I do think he'll be on the field this year. But just from your perspective, those 13 reps, as a scout, how do you evaluate them when Kyle McCord's playing shortstop before he can even play quarterback? It's like the offensive line stinks. The receivers are up against the quarterback. How do you evaluate them?
Well, I mean, I think you got to take it in stride and just say, hey, incomplete pass. Well, whose fault was that? Was it a bad route? Was it a catchable ball? Was it in the vicinity? So you can't just look at the results. You've got to look at how they apply. I mean, I thought too, some of the pre-draft stuff on the whiteboard is very telling, and who can retain information, who could spit it back, who's got to. And let's be honest, we're talking about rookie quarterbacks. I mean, that was one of the things that Shedeur Sanders failed is because he's like, hey, how dare you pull surprises on me? I'm not doing this. I don't, like, I mean, and that's what the teams do. And they want to know, like, hey, can I work with you? Yeah. And at the end of the day, like in terms of McCord and DTR, I think McCord has the upper hand. Just being the younger quarterback or the less experienced quarterback, I think there's more upside there with what you're seeing. And I had a chance to coach DTR back in middle school when he was out in Las Vegas before he went to Bishop Gorman. I don't know how many people realize, like, in terms of overall snaps and reps at quarterback, like, he played wide receiver the first 3 years in high school and then played quarterback his senior year and went off to UCLA. So it's not like he had all this domination at the quarterback level. And I wonder too, a bit of me wonders, like, the future of DTR, if he is released by the Eagles, like, is there a position change in the mix? The athleticism is there. I don't think he performed well enough to state a case to keep him as a developmental quarterback in terms of over Kyle McCord. I think McCord has shown to be better in the preseason. I think he's gotten more snaps in practice since then. And so for me, like, all signs are pointing towards McCord, and I'm not sure about the future of Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Yeah, we'll see. We got a little optimistic Rick this morning, Rick, and I want you to walk me through your thought process. And I like it. I happen to agree with you, but you said you see this team as 13 wins again. That's right where I am. I have them at 13, but I admit there's a couple where, I feel I'm maybe more optimistic than most, with a new cornerback too, with a new safety, with two new guys on the defensive front in Moro Ajomo and whoever the Jalix Hunt, probably you lost, obviously, Sweat and Milton Williams. How are you factoring that into to 13 wins? That's a lot to overcome, Rick. You know what I mean? And now everybody has turnover, but you're still very high on the Eagles coming into this year. Walk me through it.
Well, I think, you're right. Every team has turnover, and we've talked about this extensively, is continuity. You retain your coaches. That means something.
Yeah, that's true.
John, you mentioned the Lions, like, they're loaded, they're stacked, but they lost both coordinators, QB coach. I mean, they got hit on that coaching squad. So I think when you have a different voice in terms of leadership and coaching, there's more to overcome than the interchangeable parts, new faces. Some of these guys at Jomo have been in the system. Some of it is next man up, but you are identifying players that fit your scheme. Fangio does a great job of maximizing their talents. And to me, like, the coaching continuity, we saw a couple years ago after the Eagles got raided, 2 new coordinators. They had to blow it all up. They got the right guys in there now, but I think that means a lot.
Is it unfair to Vic? I mean, they get guys the number 1 defense in football by a wide margin. Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid can't get past the 50 for 10 drives in the Super Bowl, and they're gutting his defense. If I'm Vic, I'm throwing a hissy fit, man.
That's why he gets paid the big bucks, right?
That's true.
And they saved him from Miami, so I guess he's indebted to him,
Yeah, he is much happier here, if only because the Phillies are playing next door. Vic is a huge Phillies fan. Maybe the biggest Phillies fan in town, but he's very happy here. I think he's the best defensive coordinator in football, but I do think, to Xander's point, man, think about it. Everybody thinks the Eagles were still the best team in football. Obviously, they were last year, but think about how good they were last year when it all ended. I mean, they're losing a potential future Hall of Famer in Darius Slay. They're losing a $26 million player in Milton Williams. They're losing an edge rusher that got paid big bucks to go to Arizona. They lose Nakobe Dean to injury, who had a phenomenal season. They lose Oren Burks, who stepped in and looked like he was Bobby Wagner in his prime in the postseason run. They lose Isaiah Rodgers, who's probably the best backup cornerback in football. And they lose maybe the biggest playmaking safety, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Everybody's like, Vic will figure it out. Vic is great, but that's a lot, right?
Well, maybe Roseman is figuring it out, though, too, because he's always reloading. Like, Uche comes in. He looks like he's going to be a factor as a situational pass rusher. They bring in Jahad Campbell. He looks like a lightning rod, and I think he's going to start. And what a great piece. I mean, I feel like that's an upgrade. That guy is so good. So there's always something in the pipeline for the Eagles, and it's, fascinating to watch. But I think part of the byproduct of winning the Super Bowl is other teams tend to overpay for those guys on the open market due to the championship pedigree. And so it's become difficult. There's only a handful of teams in NFL history who have won back-to-back, especially in this modern day era with salary cap, free agency. Guys like Josh Sweat are going to get overpaid. And so you have to make business decisions. I think Roseman's been very wise in terms of how he allocates his money and letting guys go when they do, and knowing when to find bargain values and then wheeling and dealing. I mean, this guy, I think I saw 19 trades over the last 5 years between the start of preseason and the regular season. This guy's making trades all over the place, and I think there's going to be more to come.
Yeah, I think there's still going to be at least one. So we'll see. It's cut down day Tuesday at 4:00. Linebacker, you mentioned Jahad Campbell. I'm with you. He's going to start. But boy, that's one. Jeremiah Trotter's had a great summer too. He's done nothing wrong. It's just a matter of he got this big, lengthy, athletic praying mantis, I call him. Yeah. He's so long. He creates all these issues. But Jeremiah Trotter could play. Wait, you got a quick glimpse. He's had a great camp, but it's like, all right, sorry. Some of these other positions, you feel bad. Ringo didn't seize the job. Sidney Brown. Trotter, if you didn't have Jahad Campbell, if you had to go a different way in the draft, you'd be excited about Trotter because he's an instinctive player.
Yeah, well, but, and the depth is going to be needed, right? Because Nakobe Dean can't stay healthy. And Trotter, I will say, looked like a much improved player when I saw him in camp. I mean, he was out there. He was in command. He was communicating. He was pointing guys in the right direction. There was just a different confidence and air of him. And you could see the development there. And I'll tell you, Smile Munden is a good-looking player. He can fly all over the field.
Yeah. He's had a good camp.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, it's like all about building the pipeline. Munden might not be called upon early on in the year, but again, injuries, he's only one play away.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Rick, good stuff. I want you to give me, Rick, your top team in the NFC coming into the season, or at least what you think, and then also your top team in the AFC. I think the AFC is pretty interesting this year as well. What do you got, Rick?
Yeah, I was leaning towards the Baltimore Ravens out of the AFC. Now, I saw Lamar Jackson now came down with some kind of ankle injury, so here we go with that one. One thing I do want to say is, because I mentioned the Ravens and Derrick Henry was the last guy to run for 2,000 yards, I think one of the buried storylines here is Saquon Barkley and his repeat quest, because if you look at the history of running backs, now Henry is he's probably the only one that's bounced back pretty well, but if you remember after that 2000 year, he got broken down, missed 8 games, I think. And if you look at the trend or the history of 2,000-yard rushers, I mean, it has not fared well for any of them. The very next season, I can't find a guy who's come anywhere even close to replicating that kind of season. I think he finished with like 388 touches, if I'm not mistaken, by the end of the season.
482.
482.
Postseason.
So I mean, that's a lot of hits, guys.
Yeah.
And you just wonder, like, how much can this guy hold up? How much can he endure? He's going to have another all-time great performance in order for the Eagles to maintain and elevate this season and level of dominance. But I have the Ravens and the Eagles colliding in the Super Bowl when it's all said and done.
That's Ravens, Eagles. That should be a good one.
My club, the Ravens. I pick them every year, Rick. One year I'm going to be right.
One of these years.
Yeah.
John's got the Commanders winning the East, though. I can't let him live that down, Rick. Is he too high on the Commanders too early?
Rick knows the history of this division. It's been 2 decades.
That's true. That's true.
This is my problem with the Commanders, though, guys. You have a rookie quarterback, all right, who does what he does and takes that team to the NFC title game. You're Adam Peters. You're sitting on the second or third most cap space in the league. You got all these assets, and I don't feel like they really went all in. Now, maybe there's some mess to clean up with Daniel Snyder there, but I think they did good. I think they got better. I think they could have done a lot more with the position that they were in coming into the year and coming off of what they did last year.
I mean, I liked some of their moves. Like they brought in Laramie Tunsil, they brought in Deebo Samuel, which I thought were great complementary parts. But now is Terry McLaurin staying or going? If he departs,
you got to keep Terry McLaurin. I'm going to change if they don't keep him. But
yeah, I mean, that would be ridiculous.
Well, I mean, he's looking for like 30 million a year and 50 million guaranteed. It's a lot of money for a guy that really, I think, is a very good wide receiver. I don't know if he's great. And so Brian Robinson now is another guy. Like, are they going to hand the keys over to
yeah, they like that young kid, man.
Bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you know, like when you have those issues in training camp and veteran guys with contracts, stalemates and trade requests and uncertainty in the locker room, I think that, again, we talk about stability, whether it's coaching staff or the way front office treats the veteran guys. Like there's other guys in that locker room looking around like, hey, what's really going on here? Am I going to get paid when my time comes?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that factor alone is enough to, I think, give the Eagles the
you know what's so interesting about Eagles versus Commanders? The Eagles have gone so young. They're only 30-year-old defenders are Perry Nickerson and Obo, who probably aren't going to make the team. They've gone so young. And you mentioned Tunsil, Deebo, but they also brought in, you know, Von Miller. They still have Bobby Wagner, Frankie, Zach Ertz. They've gone complete veteran. I think it's such an interesting
Eckler,
to see
Austin
which one
Eckler,
works. Interesting dichotomy to see what works, because they got a lot of guys who know how to play. I think that means something. And they have an easier schedule, a little bit. Not, you know, the Eagles have a murder schedule. And just the natural Super Bowl hangover and 2 decades. I'm betting on history, Rick. The Eagles are going to be good. The Eagles are going to be in the playoffs, but I'm betting on history.
Come on, Rick. Don't fold the Johnny Mac.
No. I'm holding firm. I'm holding firm. And maybe like 2 months ago during the free agent frenzy, I might have been a little bit more divided. But no, I feel really, after seeing them in person, this team's ready. I'm not wavering.
All right.
I love it. Rick, good stuff, man. Make sure you guys follow Rick at Rick Serritella and go to allaccessfootball.com. Subscribe to his newsletter on Substack. It's one of the best. I get it in my email every morning. Read it every morning. Rick, thank you, brother. Make sure you guys follow Rick. We'll talk to you again soon. All right, my man?
Appreciate it. Absolutely.
Right.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome.
See you down the road
there on here. John, I want to pull up this graphic real quick before we get to our break. We're going to have Chris Franklin in hour number 2 today. All right, but we just talked about the Commanders, and I do think it's worthy of a conversation here. I don't know if you thought about what I said, but you just brought up the age. Here's a graph, John, of the average age of players on teams across the NFL. You can see the Eagles are near the bottom in terms of youth, tied with the Jets at average age 25.4. Packers are the youngest team in the league at 25.1. And then all the way up at the top is your Washington Commanders at 27.
They went all in, man. All in on these old guys.
I think they went too old, John. It's a young man's game, man. I think they went too old.
It's fair. It's fair. I'm not saying, but Bobby Wagner is old, but he's still playing at a Hall of Fame level. He was,
true.
You know, he might have been the second best linebacker in football to Zach Baun last
year.
He
is, but John, you're an odds guy, you know? You have an average age that's 2 years older. You know, how does that fare across a 17, 18, 19 game schedule?
Well, I think a lot of it is, you know, skewed towards, you know, certain guys. I think it's an individual context. I think I've been very above board. I've been off Deebo for a number of years. I think, you know, from what I've heard, he might be a little bit more rejuvenated and in better shape. So maybe he's a little bit better, but I think he's an overrated player. I've said that. I think Tunsil's still in his prime. I think he's fine. You know, I'll tell you what, you know, I don't want Von Miller for 1,000 snaps, but I guarantee he rushes the fucking passer better than Azeez Ojulari and freaking Josh Uche.
Yeah, right. Give me 300 or 400 snaps.
That dude could get off the couch and rush better than those guys. That is slam dunk, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the best pass rushers in history, who still, you know, all these camps around, you know, you have tight end university and Lane Johnson with offensive line masterminds. The Von Miller pass rushing camp was the Von Miller pass rushing camp. You know, he's the guy that everybody looks to. He's so good. So again, he's not what he once was. Bobby Wagner, to me, is their version of Darius Slay, but only better. You can talk about his age all you want, but he still performs at this amazingly high level. So it depends on the individual player. And again, with those two specifically, Samuel, I'm not a big fan of. Never have been. I think half of it, even his prime, was about playing with Kyle Shanahan, more of a manufactured touch guy, not going to run routes, not the classic receiver.